afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. If you're new, we welcome you. If you haven't been here in a while, welcome back. My name is Aaliyah Marrow, and I'm a professional tennis player and screenwriter currently based in North Carolina. Today is our DLE Culture Chat. The DLE Culture Chat is a business-oriented open forum that examines changes and challenges in today's workplace. In 60 minutes, we aim to engage multiple perspectives through a moderated format that promotes respectful conversations and actionable takeaways. Designed for interactivity, the program unites accomplished professionals from various backgrounds, and the topics we cover are extensive and relevant. We've examined virtual collaboration mentorship, workplace inclusiveness, career pivots, dealing with toxic culture, and today is part 2 of a program examining time and energy management. So again, we like to welcome you. If you're a newcomer or a frequent attendee, one of the tools we utilize is the chat. So if you could type your name, company title, and location in the chat, that would be great. But you can also use it as our guest speaker is talking. So let's go over some quick ground rules before we get started. Let's stay muted while others are talking and utilize the chat box. And when we open it up for questions, please remember to state your name and company before you do so. And now I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker, Karden Rabin. Karden Rabin is the founder of Stress School and Boundless Integrative Wellness Center, both Berkshire-based business specializing in wellness. A serial entrepreneur, he is a health and wellness expert specializing in stress-related disease and disorders. He is dedicated to helping people live productive and fully expressed lives without ruining their health and burning out in the process. Over the past decade, he has developed and led programming for the Wounded Warrior Project and Volunteers in Medicine. Karden has been an instructor for the world-renowned Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health. And now we would like to pass it over to Karden to take it away from here.
Thanks for that terrific introduction. It's always kind of interesting to hear someone else speak about you in such nice ways. So I appreciate that. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to go over a little bit of what the agenda is. So this is a follow-up to time management, but it's follow-up for time management from basically a energy in or recharge your batteries, a self-care perspective, and that's what I'm going to help guide us through today. So we're going to go over something that I call the productivity trap, and then we're going to discuss how we can escape from the productivity trap by looking at a broader perspective of our lives. Then I'm going to touch quickly on how your physiology as a human organism, really as a mammal, was designed to work and recover. And then we're going to go over a whole set of best practices for self-care that fit into the model that I'm going to present as we move along. Then we're going to do some breakout sessions where we're going to have an opportunity to dive a little deeper, ask some questions, and get personally involved. And then we're going to have a debrief at the end. So that's what's ahead. Next slide, please. So what is the productivity trap? Productivity itself, right? Increasing productivity means getting more done in less time, productive efficiency. Now, we do that because we want to get more done, but for most of us, one of the promises of productivity or being more effective is that being more productive not only gets more done, but it frees up more time. And so then the question is, what do you do with the excess time you've freed up by being more productive? Do you A, live your life, or B, do you do more work? Next slide. Now, for most of us, we are psychologically and chemically addicted to productivity. So almost all of us tend to use our productivity gains and time management gains to just do more. It becomes a productivity trap. And also, one of the other things that interestingly happens is that even though you're being more productive in less time, because you're forcing yourself to continue to be more productive in less time, it creates this pressure chamber. I like to say it's kind of like you're trying to shove more carbon dioxide into a soda bottle, right? Trying to get it to hold more and more and more. And because you're evolving your productivity, you can hold more and more and more, but eventually it's going to reach a limit point. And that's when we're going to really start having energy and self-care and burnout problems, right? Now, we're psychologically and chemically addicted to it because we get chemical messengers and satisfaction from responding to an email, from checking another thing off our to-do list. So it's not only that our culture glorifies it and our economy demands it, being productive. People that have unmatched productivity are put on a pedestal. And again, the more productive we can be, the more we make money, the more our companies make money, right? So those go together. But we're complicit too, because we're the one who ultimately decides to open the email at 10:15 p.m. at night, right? No one's making us do that most of the time. That's us being complicit. Now, even though we want to be more productive, and even though being more productive becomes a trap, we simultaneously, individually and as a culture, presumably also want to be happy and healthy and have a life. Almost every workplace talks about work-life balance, but that's a tough thing to do when you're stuck in the productivity trap. Next slide, please. So how do you escape from the productivity trap? Next slide, please. What's needed first and foremost is a perspectival shift. A perspectival shift that says work is an aspect of a larger ecosystem, a larger context, a larger phenomenon called your life. In the same way that, for example, like meetings and emails are part of a larger ecosystem called work. And if you actually want to get any work done, you have to put a container around meetings and emails and other things like that. If you want to get your life done, and if you want to effectively manage your time, you need to recognize that something similar is going on between work being an aspect of the phenomenon called your life. So next slide, please. Have you ever spent time defining your life non-work goals as rigorously as you've defined your professional work goals? Have you ever spent time defining your life non-work goals as rigorously as you've defined your professional work goals? For a huge amount of people, they've never bothered to do that. Never bothered to do it. Similarly, in business, we're always defining our work goals because we can only accomplish and measure things that have definitions. And therefore, we can make forward movement on them. But if we haven't done the same thing for things outside of work, we're not going to get there. Next slide, please. If you don't have well-articulated non-work goals, you can't achieve them, and you'll never have the so-called work-life balance. Next slide, please. So, to summarize, work needs to be an aspect of a larger context called your life. Work is not your life. And if work is your life, well, let me back up. Let me say that I want you to have a fulfilling work. I want work to be a significant portion of your life, but work is not your life. You can challenge that. We can have a side chat about that one, but I encourage you to consider that work is an aspect of your life. 2, your life goals are equally, if not more important than your work goals, as the latter is a subset of the former. If you do not define your non-work goals, you can't measure or achieve them. And what I'd really like you to write down, and what I want you to make time for sometime in the near future, is to take a few hours to brainstorm your life goals and formulate a plan where your work goals serve your life goals. Beautiful. Next slide, please. So let's talk a little bit more about how we do this work-life balance. All right. By the way, this is a lovely, just little brainstorming thing. Most people don't actually use a lot of the brainstorming or project management tools that we use in the workplace for the life place, but they are perfectly transferable. Your life should hopefully be a little more laid back and perhaps not as regimented as your work life, but I use the same thought processes and same tools that work in the productivity space in my life space. Next slide. So, recharging your batteries, that is the name of this presentation. Your organism was designed to conserve energy, not waste it. So, I frequently use the term organism when I talk about human beings because a human being is a complete system. You're a mind, you're a brain, your neurology, you're a body, your physiology, you're an organism. And also, like an organism, you're an animal. Now, for almost the sum total of evolutionary history, organisms did not have guaranteed abundant energy, meaning they spent most of their time focused on getting food, but then they also were all built to optimize the consumption of energy and to not waste it. So, for example, one of the reasons why one of the diseases or afflictions of wealthy nations is obesity, there's a lot of reasons for it, but one of them is simply the abundance of nutrients. And because we were designed to hold on to those nutrients, because for most of evolutionary history, our organism didn't know when it was going to get it next, we are designed to conserve energy, not waste it. So I want you to remember that. Next slide. So this brings us to what I call in my work the restore path. More energy in and less energy out. More energy in and less energy out. Again, every organism on Earth was designed to maximize energy in and spend the least amount necessary out, because that energy deficit is what led to life or death. And so we're going to talk about what I mean by energy in versus energy out. Obviously, all productivity, all work-related activities, high intensity fitness, all things that require a significant amount of energy to accomplish, again, whether they're work or non-work, is energy out. Hosting an elaborate dinner party for your friends is energy out, all right? Having your friends over to basically chill on the couch and have some pizza and share stories, that's in the middle, or that's energy in, but it's certainly not energy out. Next slide. So, energy in self-care. These are ordered mostly from most important to least important. Not most important to least important, but really important at the top and then kind of suggestive as we go down. So the first thing kind of goes back to earlier slides, which is you must rigorously define and ferociously defend your work-life time boundaries. One of my favorite books, which is kind of like Walden Pond and Thoreau meets Silicon Valley, is called Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And the author, Greg McKeown, at one point brings up an example. He says, if you tried to bring, for example, your child to a meeting at work at 3 p.m. on a Thursday, it would be outrageous, unacceptable, work-life time boundary violation. But when your boss, or when you pick up your work email at 6 p.m. on a Friday night when you're having dinner with your family, that's an equally egregious violation of work on personal life. But we've let those boundaries become incredibly porous for a variety of reasons, technology being one of them, our addiction to productivity being another one of them, workplaces that don't set these boundaries up well. And so where it starts with is you rigorously defining and ferociously defending your own work-life time boundaries and deciding that living your life is more important than your addiction to getting the next email sent out. 2, your body does not distinguish between energy out, work EO, or social energy out, or home improvement energy out. Energy out is energy out, and energy in is energy in, right? So when you're thinking about this in simply an energy concept, you can look at your whole week and see, like, what energy in activities am I doing, and how many energy out activities am I doing? If you're working a 60-hour week and then on the weekend you say, well, I don't work, but I volunteer at the soup kitchen or saving pets, that's a wonderful and noble thing to do, but that's still more energy out, and you wonder why you're exhausted or burning out. You have to respect basically the physical and energetic dynamics of being a living organism. Now, 3, this is supremely important. Avoid exhaustion and overdoing it at all costs. The stress response system in a human being is remarkably adaptive if it's handled correctly. So for example, when we do progressive interval work, or when we do progressive weight work, or when we learn to run a little further, we are increasing our stress adaptation within limits without exhausting ourselves. And then we're able to run further, lift more, work harder. But there is a fine line between adaptive stress and chronic stress that becomes exhaustive. Anytime you exhaust your body, anytime you exhaust it, whether it be partying too late, working too late, or working out too hard, like a bunch of CrossFit people, we'll get into that another day, okay, you are inevitably degrading your body. And athletes can really relate to this. They know how much training improves them versus degrades their performance. And I think the same thing goes for work and life. Become a sleep Olympian. There is no single better way to get energy into a living organism than the thing that's been bringing energy in for hundreds of millions of years, which is sleep. You must sleep well, and you must take sleep as serious as any other kind of health or training. And ideally, you're getting 8 or more hours, and you're asleep by 10:30, because for human beings, an optimal sleep window is 10:30, but is really to go to bed between 9 and 11. If you go to bed later than that, let's just say your sleep is not as restorative. Obviously, nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, but basically you want unprocessed anti-inflammatory foods. You want to eat not too much, and you want to take good supplements. That's a great way to get energy in. Power naps instead of caffeine, right? Anytime that you can use a restorative practice to bring natural energy in rather than using an external substance to give you a boost, you want to choose that. Again, many of you might do fitness, but fitness in and of itself is not energy in. Restorative yoga, meditation, breath work, quality, non-boozy, non-technology time with those you love, those are actual forms of energy in. So the takeaway here is for you to think about your time management in very rigorously defined and ferociously defended ways, and then to think about your self-care largely in terms of energy out versus energy in. And these are all strategies that you can utilize. Next slide, please. Boom. I think we're right on time here. I'm sure Linda will let me know. But now we are going to break out, and we're going to address these questions.
All right.
Everyone make it back okay?
I think so. I think so. We had some good discussions. So I will probably call on each group to report back and tell us what you all talked about. So group 1, any surprises, commonalities, new learning from what we just learned? Who's group 1?
Which one was group 1?
See Karden holding his hand up.
Group 1 would be your group, Aaliyah.
Is that mine? Marcus.
Yeah.
You got it. Sorry.
I think each group felt like they were group number 1. I think.
My bad. Okay. You got it, Marcus. Take it away. Mute. You're muted. Technology.
Cool. You can hear me now, guys?
Oh yes, our breakout session was pretty cool. I had Leah in there, Tim and Kevin. Kevin 2015. We kept calling Tim Timothy like he was in grade school, but he goes by Tim. So what? One of the things, what prevents you from self-care? Kevin mentioned he has a running to-do list. So anytime he sits down before he really relaxes, he looks at his to-do list, and then it's like, okay, should I be sitting down watching TV, or should I be working on this project or working on that? And that resonates with me as well. Aaliyah fell in that same boat. Like, you should be working. Should I really be sitting down watching TV? For me personally, it's my mindset as an athlete. Hard work is just a prerequisite for success. So if you're not always trying to do something to separate yourself from the competition, you deserve to be average or below average. What can you add to your self-care? The one for me, I was saying, building genuine relationships again. I feel like in college, it was so easy to establish relationships without looking for mutually beneficial, how this relationship going to be mutually beneficial to both of us in a business sense. How do you overcome some obstacles of self-care? I mean, Kevin, he meditates 10 minutes every day. He really commits to that, which is big. I hear that from a lot of doctors and wellness coaches. And for Kevin, he sees exercise as energy in for him. It really helps him out for the rest of the day, really puts him in the right mindset, so he really enjoys working out. And something that we can add, something that resonated with us from the presentation, this comes from Tim. Karden, you said we should treat our self-care just as regimented as we treat our professional goals. That's something that resonated with me as well, because I never thought about self-care. That's like the last thing. And the last thing, the funny one is, the one that resonated the most was taking a nap. So when we were like in pre-K and kindergarten, we always took naps. I don't know why they took that away from school. And Karden, I think you should lead up public schools in America and say add naps back in K to 12.
Very good, very good. I would totally sign the petition for that. Okay, group 2.
Cam, take it away. That was our group.
All right. So my group was Crystal, Finn, Amy, and the Linda Dulye. We discussed for the biggest obstacles. We felt it was feeling the need to be productive, and that willingness that we all had to kind of surrender our free time when we are doing stuff for ourselves for work. Like if an email popped up, we're all willing to, do that over something else we were already doing for ourselves. Excuse me. And in addition, we also said recognizing the fact that we have to devote time. I feel like a lot of us kind of recognize that. It's just more of the issue of like keeping to that time. And the ways to overcome some of those issues, we felt instilling the need to have that discipline, like understand that discipline's necessary, but also defining the line of work goals, making sure that those are not so heavy or so overwhelmingly more heavy than the personal goals, making sure the personal goals were as defined. And then one thing that we felt we all kind of honed in on as one thing we can do to going forward fix some of this is work on our sleep. We all agreed that sleeping was the toughest thing to keep to. Amy mentioned that meditation and yoga was very helpful for her sleep. She was the only one who acknowledged that her sleep was pretty good. And also, Finn also said that we should have less caffeine and that he drinks decaffeinated tea before sleep. So I thought that was interesting.
Awesome. So we keep going back to sleep. I wish I could go back to that again. It's easy. Let's go to group 3. I think that's Khalid. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I'll speak for our group. So I was in the group with Khalid, Nicole, and Kevin and myself. We definitely had some common themes about, how we are all working from home now, and we have been for quite a while now, since at least March. And we feel like we're not just working from home, we're really living at work. And we talked about some of the workspaces that we have our desks. Like for me, I have mine in my gym. And so now, when I finish a workout, whereas before I worked from home, I would just finish a workout and go take a shower. Now I say, well, why don't I sit down on my computer? Let me just check the last few emails that maybe I didn't see since I signed off. And I would have never done that before. So we talked about some of those, similar feelings. We're all kind of having a little bit of difficulty separating work from our home life, and then, figuring out how our identity has changed since then. Some of the things that we used to do is, get up and physically go to work, or leave work and go do hobbies or things with other people. And now that we're here, we're just kind of having a bit of an identity crisis as well. And just what are we doing? So some of the ways that we talked about coping with that, and just what we're learning here today, is just being very hyper aware of the activities that we're doing in a day, and attributing those to that kind of, was that an energy in or an energy out kind of activity? And then when we wake up the next day feeling exhausted, then you can reflect on, okay, well, yesterday I did a lot or exclusively energy out activities, and that would be why I don't feel as restored today. And I'm, lacking motivation, lacking energy. Just being hyper aware of the ways that we're spending our energy. I think we're going to focus on that.
Yes, energy, focusing on how you spend your energy. Again, that energy in is something that really resonated with me. So let's go to Jesse. I think that is group 4. Group 4. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I was the keeping track of the general discussion here for group 4. So for Jesse, his schedule is usually, if he's working later, it goes more into the evening. So he had made a note of, making sure to get breaks throughout the day, not starting work too early, because he knows that his meetings tend to run over into the evening with others that he works with. Taking, like he took today off as an example, to recharge. So keeping that in mind as well. Dan has a bit of a more of a open hours plan, not necessarily a strict rigid schedule. For him, what he found was quite effective was, that keeps him on schedule, is the dog walks around the middle of the day, around noon. He did mention he was a big fan of coffee. Jesse did as well. I am too. So I think a lot of us, I didn't hear Ben specifically state that, but it sounded like you might be as well. I think that one's probably one of the weaknesses in our group, and probably a lot of people in this discussion in general. For Ben, he felt like he was on a very okay. Ben just responded there. Yep. So we're all 4 of us on the coffee train there. Ben mentioned he did have a generally speaking, a lot of discipline and sticking to many of the topics discussed. He did just have a son right around the beginning of the pandemic. So obviously a major life event there, and that changed a lot of the routines. So he's been working on some meditation and management of the schedule with his wife, back and forth between the two of them as well. For me, I tend to have a lot more meetings earlier in the morning, and that makes it a little bit difficult to manage in some of those cases. But it does make my afternoons more open, so that I can do some of the personal things around the house earlier in the afternoon than probably a lot of people could. Sometimes for me, it's even around like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because I work with people in India and Europe in many cases. I'm done for the day earlier in the day. So I just kind of have to plan my schedule on a different time. For me, I've added some meditation and yoga more than I used to. I've definitely found some benefits from that. Unfortunately, even with gyms being open again, I found it difficult to do any sort of cardio related exercise with the mask on. So that was kind of a loss in that sense, but can still do some other things. So.
All these conversations about how to get energy. I remember there was a video game when we were younger, Sims. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but the energy bar, you would have to do things to get your energy bar up again. So who knew a video game was trying to teach us life lessons? Okay, let's go to group 5. I think that's Karden's group, group 5.
Yeah, I'll speak for our group. So it was myself, Anna, Chris, and Karden, and Jonathan, our newcomer. So we had a pretty diverse group actually, which was really great to get some discussion and some different perspectives. But I think in general, to kind of something we all had in common is we're chronic overworkers, and have a hard time with boundaries and saying no, and kind of drawing that line in the sand or building a wall, if you. But I think something that we all kind of took out of it is this distinction between what qualifies as time out, and understanding that it might be things that you would otherwise enjoy if you weren't exhausted, and understanding kind of that line of exhaustion, and that it is a bad thing. You know, Jonathan and I, we both spoke about how we are big into fitness, and you think that if you're exhausted and falling on the floor, that means you had a great workout, but it actually, excuse me, can have some detrimental effects. So I think in general, just to kind of sum up our entire discussion, which was very vulnerable and very awesome to hear and share and learn about each other. Is that you have to draw those boundaries, and there are tactical ways and tools that you can put in place to help you do that, so you don't just kind of jump in a very uncomfortable conversation or very uncomfortable situation, put yourself in a place where you don't feel good about doing things. There's things that you can do to kind of walk that line between keeping those relationships and making yourself feel good, but then also keeping your inner peace safe too.
Awesome. That sounds really awesome. I do believe we have a question for Karden real quick. Jesse wanted to ask Karden just a quick question about. So Jesse, if you want to go on and shoot a question, you can.
Awesome. I have a quick question. So not that we can control other people, but I wanted to ask, what do you do when you see someone who's clearly in need of practicing self-care and is clearly burnt out and falling into the productivity trap? Because I work in advertising, and like I have clients who will email at like 10:30 at night, not expecting a response, so it's fine. But I can tell that they're just so burnt out, and like it just shows, like, because they're like scatterbrained, they're not organized, things like that. Like, how do you, is there anything you can do to like suggest to them maybe take a break?
You know, Jesse, you're observing on one of the I guess one of the bittersweet things of my entire career and life, right? I'll say two things. On the optimistic side, you can always, lead a horse to water, right? You can drop suggestions. You can send a heartfelt piece of concern. You can link to a podcast or a book, anything you think might germinate for them, right? If you guys have seen Inception, right? The best way to get someone to believe an idea is for them to believe that they had it themselves, right? And so the ways of doing that are by sharing content, often sharing content as opposed to advice, which is distinguished, which is different, so that it arises naturally for them. So that's one approach. But the other truth is that so here at Boundless, my clinic, our marketing principles that we get you out of pain, where a lot of my colleagues market being healthier. All right. In my experience, people don't seek health until they're in pain. right? Until they're burnt out, until they are basically at the point of exhaustion or somewhere where they need it. It's just the nature of individuals. It's the nature of our society. And so, like I said, I market to pain or dysfunction rather than to health, because although I prefer, and what I do for people once they're here is aspirationally help them, usually people don't reach for the resources till they need them. So my answer is that former part, which is do your best to bring them pieces of information that you think will germinate for them. Be a good friend and honest to your feedback, and then be patient, because another slogan, another little mantra that I have is I can show people the way, but I can't make them walk it.
Thanks.
That's really, really good point. Does anybody else have any questions? We do have time. If you guys have a question that you want to shoot to Karden while he's here, go ahead. You got it.
Thank you. I got one for Karden. It's more like about something that we discussed in our small group, in our group 3 discussion, was activities that are clearly energy out, like running or working out. That's one of the things I personally and the group seem to be leaning on that more during this pandemic. But personally, for me, it's mentally restorative to go out for a run. How would you categorize that or modify that to just know how to use your energy better?
And then I'm glad that you asked. Oh, am I unmuted? I forget. Yeah, great.
Yes.
I'm glad that you asked that, so I can clarify that. Exercise is energy out, but energy out isn't categorically bad. Energy out only becomes negative when you've exceeded basically a performance zone and moved towards exhaustion, right? So I'd put it differently. Let me start by exercise is one of the only things that's keeping our culture alive for those who do it, right? Because in a culture that's overworked and emotionally repressed, that doesn't do any of the kinetic and physical aspects that your mammalian organism was meant to do, right? Like, remember, every single stress and threat response you experience in your life by all of your mammal friends is solved by either running or fighting. Okay, that's it. Running and fighting is your two options. That's it. This sum total of incredible biological machinery is like, or right? That's it. That's what it wants to do. It has a couple other options. One is to befriend and ask for help. And the other one is to freeze, which we inherited from reptiles, by the way. Okay, so nothing is singularly more important to processing accumulated stress and repression than physical activity, period. And therefore, I advocate for it enormously. But when your physical activity, first of all, by the way, a 10-minute interval or a 20-minute interval is enough to move the stress and make yourself physically active. But when you've decided to add marathon training to your 80-hour week, you are bonkers and going bananas insane, because eventually that is going to catch up to you. And it might not happen in your 20s, and it might not happen in your 30s, but it's going to start in your 30s. Okay, by the way. And it's certainly going to happen in your 40s. So basically, I advocate for you exercising as frequently as possible in a way that's good for you, but do not do it past the point where, so if I pulled like a 17-hour workday, something crazy, and I'm supposed to work out at 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, that's bonkers. You should sleep. Okay. And don't blame, don't blame me, blame yourself for programming your life like that. Right. So that's my answer to the exercise bit. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. So it's more like take a mindful approach. Like you need the energy out in this case to deal with the stress of other stuff, but be aware of the full power bar energy that Aliyah was referring to earlier.
Yeah. In fact, let me say something quickly about that, that it's true both in biology, but also it comes from Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine talks about that there's basically two categories of energy. There's your qi and your jing. Jing is a kidney energy. It's primordial. And qi is refreshed basically by food. And they use a checking account and bank account analogy. But since I feel like we got a lot of nerds on here, I use like a halo analogy. Okay. You've got your shield bar and you got your life bar. All right. Each day you can gobble up your shield because you know that shit's going to get recharged by food and sleep. Okay. But when your shield gets blown past and you start taking those shots to the chest and your life bar goes down, that is very bad. Does that help?
A lot.
That
Thank
helps
you.
a lot. That helps a lot. Karden, I really, really appreciate it. I know everybody else really appreciates it. If you could just summarize in 1 minute, one more time, just, some takeaways we should leave with this before we wrap up. 1 minute, please.
You got it. I'm going to make the summary like this. You guys are participating in the Dulye Leadership Experience, all right? And I am basically advocating for you to take personal leadership of your self-care. That's it. Leadership is taking responsibility. Leadership is setting an example. Leadership is making a stand for that which you are committed to, the goals you've set. You guys, most people are very good at developing that basically in work and when they're responsible to other people, but they're tragically terrible at it when they're only responsible to themselves. Right? So the takeaway is take personal leadership for your overall life and bring the intention and strategy that you do to your work life. All right? And basically define and ferociously defend those boundaries, see that work serves life, decide if you haven't yet what your life is actually about, and then monitor your energy in versus your energy out and choose from the menu of options for what works best for you. Don't turn self-care into another stressor.
Perfect. I think that was awesome. And I think that was well needed, especially for the times that we're in, just managing that energy and finding that balance. So now I will say thank you and I will pass it off to Linda.
We met Karden on Monday. I think it was. We had a planning meeting Monday. This came together really fast and it was just so spot on. You had instant karma with our planning team and it was great to watch everyone's faces today. Clearly, Karden, this is a message that we want to build on, and maybe we do a couple more programs with you and talk about that as we are in the process with our 2021 programming. And wellness was just wellness and networking just popped to the top. So I want to thank you so much in such fast time in bringing truly enlightening insights for us. I need to become a sleep Olympian. I want a medal here, and I don't know how to do that, but I clearly got a 2021 goal, and it better happen because 4 hours doesn't work anymore. It just isn't a good thing. This is our last culture chat. And I mean, this has been an extraordinary program that has blossomed from a group of people sitting in a circle in our DLE office in Pittsfield to having people connected from all over the US and really learning and networking together. So thank you for our newcomers. Thank you for our regulars. We will keep this going on. We have a program team. I'd like to recognize them because they put a lot of time volunteering into this. Aaliyah did a great job first time up moderating. I mean, exceptional. Crystal, you're the one that really opened the door to Karden and really helped us pave the way to this one. Thank you so much. Khaled, always giving us insight and energy. We appreciate it. Cheryl Owen, who isn't on our call today, but has been part of our planning team. Marcus, thank you always. You're spot on, particularly when you do your recaps. And we had Jesse stepping in to moderate, and we needed that too. So thank you, team. Lots of hours of volunteering. Nicole, can you just pull up one slide? Karden and I were talking about we love to sell things we really believe in. Well, I really believe in the DLE, obviously. And there's two things that I just wanted to leave you with. This is our last event. The holiday hangout is coming up. I know Jonathan on the West Coast might be tough at 7 a.m. East Coast time, but it is our last DLE event of the year. It's a holiday hangout. People wanted to have some casual conversations and some good cheer. Please join us. There's a registration link. We'll be jumping in to take you to that. And the other thing is we just launched, I think, one of the most elegant cookbooks. Kelsey Ross, who is our marketing leader, and Nicole have spent hours. And by the way, we've had I think we had 40 submissions. So thank you to everyone who did provide a DLE, either new or longstanding family tradition. But this is an elegant, elegant cookbook that we are going to break out with next week. So we have a link to that. If you're interested in seeing it, getting a copy, we'd love to have you become part of our first ever cookbook ownership. So that's what's coming up. I also just want to say we're going to give you a link to a poll, and Karden has opened up his, I want to call it the Stress Academy, but it's a stress school. I think he needs the Sleep Academy, but he has opened up a discount for our DLE, actually all of you here today, and we can also open it wider to the DLE population for his stress school. And the stress school is an online program that provides practices, community, and accountability to transform your stress in your life. You'll get information on what the discount is in the thank you that you'll get right after we sign off today. And thank you, Karden, for that.
Pleasure.
But one thing we do like to do, and I don't know, Karden, if you've got about 15 minutes, I know a lot of people we want to jump off. We end on time. If you could just hang out to maybe answer a few questions. I know Lexi had a question we didn't get to, but if you could stay, that would be great.
Yeah, I can give. I can give
10.
I can give 7.
7 minutes is good.
We'll make 7 good minutes.
Okay. So if you can stay on for the 7 minutes and get a little more rapport going on, that's great. For everyone who can't, thank you for being part of today. Please give us your feedback on the quick poll, and everybody set life goals. We talk about career ownership. You've now inspired us, Karden, also to add life ownership. Thanks, everybody.